It's just gone 6, so we'll make a start. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Welcome everybody. My name is Paula Harrison and I'm the coordinator at University Centre Telford, and we're part of the University of Wolverhampton. We normally run a series of public lectures in the centre when times are normal. But obviously at the moment, times are very far from normal and we decided to run all our lectures online. So the sports team at the University of Wolverhampton have been incredibly supportive, and this is our 4th sports lecture tonight. And we welcome Dr Sean Galloway for tonight's lecture. So welcome to Sean as well as to all the participants. Before I hand over to Sean, just a couple of technical things about tonight's session. Obviously we're on Zoom. There will be a question and answer session. And for those of you who are on Zoom desktop, the question and answer button or icon is in the bottom of the screen. And you can just click on that and type a question, and I'll be looking at that throughout the evening. And if you're on a mobile device, the Zoom icon is in the top right-hand corner. So you can post a question, and I think Sean will stop at various points to wait for questions and comments. So I'd just like to introduce Sean now. Sean is originally from Canada and has lived and worked in 9 different countries over the past 30 years, which is amazing. He's been delivering online learning for the past decade, although he has just started using and delivering online sport coaching practical skills. So tonight's lecture is called Coaching in an Uncertain Climate, Making Lemonade Out of Lemons. So I'll hand over to you, Sean. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paula, for the introduction. So good evening. It's been, I can't remember, so I've been at the university 16 years. I think the university tried in my 3rd year there to do evening lectures with the Walsall campus, and it wasn't very successful. I think we went from 80% attendance to like 5. So, you know, I guess nowadays and currently now it's, you know, it's just as easy to do lectures in the evening. So with that, yeah, coaching in a certain climate. So this came to me as an idea, obviously because of the lockdown, but previously we at the University of Wolverhampton had decided to redo our course, so restructure our course, and in it we already kind of saw the future and that a lot of sports coaches. Go ahead.
There's just a little bit of interference with the sound.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah, I think so.
Sorry. So we decided to restructure our course, and in it we saw that a lot of coaches were starting their own coaching courses or programs, after school coaching and so forth, and we realized that technology was really important. So we made changes to entrepreneurial skills, and we made changes to adding modules and courses that take advantage of technology, being video, you know, coaching, virtual means being one of them. So through this, you know, through the changes that we had, I thought that it'd be interesting to talk to a lot of the coaches that have graduated the program, and friends of mine from many other different sports who are reacting to this lockdown, because it's a lot, well, it's just changed radically how coaching is. So a lot of them have, in fact, you know, from lemons made lemonade. They've adapted, they've overcome, but that's not without a lot of problems. And for me personally, I do a lot of online learning, and I see a lot of problems in some of the instructors and what they do. Easy to say, and like Paula said, I'm personally starting to figure out how to coach online as well, because I've done lectures, which is a totally different thing. I'm teaching physical skills and stuff. So let's get on to it. It's loading. Oh, that's it. Start the presentation.
Might just need to move closer to the microphone,
Yeah.
Sean. I think there's some interference.
Okay. Is everybody getting the screen share? Are they getting all the icons?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we'll start. So a little bit about myself. I'm originally from Canada, as Paula said. I have lived in a number of countries, predominantly though Japan, Australia, Greece, Hungary, Kuwait, and now the UK for the last 16 years. I was a former professional athlete. I played ice hockey at a very high level, not the highest level, the NHL, but for a farm team, for an NHL team. I also did and still do a lot of karate, and I was a national team member there. I've gained the degrees in physical education, and psychophysiology. I've also worked as a professional track coach, psychologist, PE teacher in a number of countries, strength and conditioning specialist, and I've been certified for all three. So I love sport, and that's what I've been doing. Luckily enough, in my hometown, it was not unusual for anybody who played competitive sport to get their level 1 and level 2 in coaching in whichever sport. So by the time you're 13, you start coaching certification, you start coaching at the youngers, and then go through. So that's a bit of me and my background. So the lecture aims, the aim of this lecture is to present the recent coaching landscape. So we have lockdown and right away, a lot of people closed shop and some didn't. So that, there's a lot of things that people have started to learn in terms of how to coach in this current landscape. It's changing all the time. And now, as I understand, it's one-on-one, or the latest information was 1 to 5. I can't remember the exact number. It's changing. It will still change. I think that if you have your own company or you're working for a company, there's going to be a lot of changes step by step. And who knows? I'm typically an optimist, but as been indicated, there may be more waves of this. So. We need to be coaching, we need to get out there and make some money and coach some people, and we need to have kind of backup plans. So from that, I'm going to present a framework of what quality coaching is. We know what quality coaching is to some level when we're face-to-face, but what is it when we're coaching virtually? I'm also going to provide some suggestions for what we do when we go back to whatever normal is in the future, if there's such a thing. All right, so coaching past and coaching future, a few videos of typical coaching. Predominantly coaches who come from the coaching program and many coaching programs in the UK, you end up working with kids. So we'll just take a quick look at this and it's what it was. So millions of kids all over the place. Coaches, a number of coaches with them, getting them moving. Having a lot of fun, doing physical activities. And for the foreseeable future, this type of situation is going to not happen. And, we coached for multitudes of people. Even when we had individual type sports, most of us tried to maximize our time and what we got back for the money for our time by having more than one. It's a better business model. So I found this interesting. I was looking for something on COVID and what to do.
Can you play sports while wearing a face mask? We've seen it introduced in certain sports, like we've seen jockeys abroad wearing face masks while they're riding horses, but that's a completely different kettle of fish. You're actually going by your own steam and you're the one running around. So what I'm going to do is a workout that I normally do myself. And this time I'm going to introduce a face mask, see if it's possible to do it. I'm going to do it with my friend Niall Keane. Now this isn't organised by a club or anything like that. We're doing it ourselves, just as a little test. We're going to adhere to social distancing. We're washing our hands with hand sanitizer. We've done beforehand as well. And we'll do again while we're running around. We just want to see what the feeling is like. There's no talk that the GA is going to bring this in. As they've already said, there won't be a social distancing has stopped, but the GA will begin again. But we just want to see, in theory, what would it be like to try and play GA with face masks on. We're going to do some runs with the face masks on. We're also going to do a small bit of hurling as well. See how we get on. So here we go. That mine are just about to start a set of 6 runs. They're 100 meters each. Every run starts on the minute. So you have the remainder of the minute to take a rest, and we go again. Heart rate up to 136 already.
Okay, we're not going to spend much time on that. And to be honest, when we start to get to some sort of face-to-face level again, it's possible that we might have to wear masks. And that's just yet another problem that we have to solve. But that's more a problem of physiology and planning. And maybe a good reason for having extra type of online sessions if we can, because as these gentlemen point out, it's darn hard to do exercise in a face mask, especially a proper one that filters out, say, 90–95% of the particulates. It's near impossible to do vigorous activity. So, but yeah. All right, so some common problems with online coaching, and this is through what I've seen from some of my coaches who coach online, and definitely through a lot of the different programs that I've ever seen. When we talk about coaching online, there's a number of ways that we can do this, but the typical ones are in terms of classification. One where you have a video, and that video is there, and then you leave it and it's standalone. And there's a lot of arguments against this type and some arguments for. And then the other one would be the type of online coaching where we are there, they can see us and we can see them, and for all intents and purposes, it's real time. It is as face-to-face as we'll get. So with that, some of the common problems, and these are based on strong pedagogical concepts. You'll see that I haven't had any references through this because this is more of an exploration and a chat. It's not a university lecture where I'm going to support everything with academia so that the students can then go back and find it. So, but it all is. So changing viewpoints is really important. The amount of times I've seen, whether it's a video or even live at that point in time, one viewpoint, one angle, so sagittal or horizontal, horizontal less so, but frontal, so in front or side. And it's very rare that you see both or multiple positions. So we need to really think about that and move to those positions as we're coaching. Anybody who's been part of the university program with myself, when I go to teach something like a yoga stretch or whatever, I show frontal and then I move to the side to give different types of planes of viewing. In many cases, there's too many screens to look at. So if you look at the picture down on the bottom, my right, I guess maybe your left. I have a sensei, a karate instructor, sensei's teacher, and he's doing Zoom classes now. He's got one of the biggest clubs in Canada for karate and maybe one of the biggest in the world with over 1,000 students. And so those who take part, he split it into belt levels and experience and all this sort of stuff, adults and kids and whatnot. But he at any one time will have Zoom classes with somewhere between 50 and 75. And with that, it's very tough to look at screens and do feedback. He's working right now on having a number of his instructors split up the groups in terms of visual and be able to provide some sort of feedback afterwards. So, but we need to think about that, because as we go forward, the ability to coach to many is probably, if this was a business, one of the most important factors to be able to survive. So if you have 10 individuals on a team, or 10 individuals who are your clients, if you're able to do one session that teaches them a certain skill, because tactics are near impossible to teach in social distancing. If you're able to do that one session and charge them each £2, then there's 20 quid for your hour or 45 minutes, and that's the investment in time is worth that. However, there's lots of evidence to show, both at a university level, an educational level, and definitely a sports coaching level, that if you're not providing feedback, you're not completing the educational process. You're not able to make any sort of substantial change. I have some suggestions for this, but it's super important. So feedback is key, and it also relates to kind of a psychological caring and a sociological caring. So the next one is, in best case scenario, one-on-one is probably, in terms of technique development, one of the best ways to go for the athlete. Unfortunately, as a business model, it becomes quite expensive. Like I say, if you had to do 45 minutes for each one of those athletes, each one of those 10 athletes, you still get $20 or 20 quid, I should say. But it's 10 hours of your day as opposed to 1 hour, or maybe 1 hour plus follow-ups for each one, maybe 2 hours. So return on investment's a business term, and the return on investment in this case is time spent teaching, and so we always need to think about that in terms of business. The next thing and this is something I hope you guys have suggestions for, is lack of psychosocial connection. So coaching is, as we know, not just teaching skills. It's about caring for somebody. It's about being part of a group. And so say, like, a number of my friends, we get together and we do quizzes, we play poker online, whatever, we do social things. And it is serving a sociological, aspect of things, but it's not quite as good. So I don't know what else we can do. And I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say. So, with those, these are the common problems. Like we end up looking at a screen, like I'm looking at a screen now, and if I hadn't had lots of practice, definitely the first year of doing this type of thing felt really, really weird. And it wasn't until I started getting with my imagination, imagining that somebody's in front of me, putting a mirror in front of me, all sorts of different things, that I felt a little bit more comfortable to be able to teach to people online. So during that time, I just taught content, and I didn't make as many jokes and those kind of personal type touches. So it's a huge one, and it's something that probably out of all these sort of suggestions I have, the one that's hardest to act on. Yeah, we'll come back to that one later, and I'd definitely like to get your opinions with that. All right, so quality sport online delivery. This is considering teaching skill development. You need a bunch of views. I was going to have a slide focusing on, the skills you need as far as being a coach for online delivery, and also the tools. So some of the tools that are definitely used, I think, talking again to a lot of students who are out there coaching, you can do a lot with your phones. You can do a lot more with 2 phones. You definitely need some basic editing possibilities. And so that, this is the editing part is super important. but there are programs that allow you to do split level or split screen, have that frontal and sagittal plane. This is another one that's super important. When we go to do coaching online, it largely becomes a process whereby we're doing most of it visually. And there's a lot of literature, anecdotal and otherwise, that suggests that, I mean, lots of people have different ways of learning. And so we kind of forget those other ones, which is kinesthetic. Like if I go to punch, I move somebody physically there, up, down, all those sort of things. And that's not happening very much. So when you are demonstrating sports skills, inside those sports skills that you demonstrate, a lot of them are mechanical, so angles and positions and those sort of things. But and visually you're able to demonstrate that quite easily. But being able to think of a vocabulary which attacks, which presents the feeling of something, is for some of you is something that's going to be tough and hard to do. So spending the time to think about how you would, you know, the visual is somewhat simple. You know, if I punch and it's in the middle of my chest, I see it there, that's good. But then what does it feel in terms of my shoulders, my lats, the wrist, and how it should be up or down? How does that feel? You know, oh yeah, there's a tendon there. Okay. So that tendon needs to feel taut or needs to feel relaxed. And then there's the auditory, which is always a problem. And again, anybody in my class, when we talk about various forms of feedback, or visual, kinesthetic, those are probably 90% of what people do. But the sound of something is super important. As demonstration, as a track coach, you know, the clapping for tempo is really important. But don't forget that when you're coaching somebody, that tempo and timing. Even more interestingly, how things sound. You know, the sweet sound when you crack a football properly in the middle of the football is something of a feedback. And so, you know, developing your vocabulary most probably towards the kinesthetic and the visual or the auditory, I should say, is something that a lot of people forget. The next is we need to consider how to demonstrate psychological and sociological care. And I guess the simple one is, I think that anybody who is delivering online who doesn't do even a minute of one-on-one feedback. So, you know, you maximize your potential, you have your 10 clients there, you're demonstrating a skill, you're using different angles and planes, you're talking physically, you know, how things feel, how things sound, and then you wrap it up. You're doing a pretty good job, but I'm not sure that a lot of people will stick around for that. Not for very long. You need to have the personal touch, which is a one-on-one. Even a minute or 2 minutes is incredibly valuable, where you talk about how they're doing. You know, a lot of people spend more time talking about the technique that they've just learned, and that's fine too, but it's a form of caring when you spend that extra time. So, you know, you want to make money, you want to maximize that potential, because time is money. You know, for me, now that I think in terms of coaching, if I'm not making a requisite amount of money, then I'd rather be with my family. So it's vitally important. But that small amount of time in terms of investment on psychology and the sociology, the building of a team is still something that was my social psychology was one of my master's degrees, and I understand it, but again, I'm old school. I believe in face-to-face, which just isn't happening. On the other side of things, I've been forced to, because most of my friends are scattered amongst the world. So we're trying to figure out how to, you know, better bond sociologically as a group. So, okay, now we get to the feedback mechanism. So you produce some videos, and they're maybe, you know, they're real time. They're at the time. You have the ability to look at your athletes or athlete that you're with. So, what are some of the things that are really important for you to be able to produce good levels of feedback? It's tough. If you have lots of people, it's going to be tough. And this is where my sensei has like 50 to 75 people online at one time. He realizes the importance of giving quality feedback, and people, he's charging them, and they're sticking around a considerable amount for what some people would say online. Why am I paying this much online? And he gives them, somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes through his other instructors, sometimes himself, depending on whether they're close to their grading. But they're looking at each group of people, a smaller group of people, and giving feedback, if not the same time, then just after. So, but it's tough. Some of the solutions that I have and have worked with online sports coaches is to create this communication grid. Now, again, past students of Wolves will have probably seen this to some level. And basically, this communication grid will go through technique. So a technique, an in-step task, which I have a bit to look at in a little bit. And you go through the phases. You talk about the complexity of it, the key words, and a memory peg, which is called a mnemonic. These grids are, I think they're invaluable, and yet I don't see as many students doing it. I think it's because it is a bit of hard work. It's not so easy. So, but I think that if you do this, you have a resource to go back to. It serves a lot of purposes. As I said, some of the benefits are parent engagement, which is ginormous. I mean, if you're engaging the parents properly, they're the ones who are paying the ticket, or a significant other. If you're coaching at a higher level, get them involved. And they can't get involved unless you have a crystal clear way for them to get involved. So it's been my experience that I could teach anybody, if they're interested in observing, to look for 1 or 2 points and then have the exact mechanical positions that they should be looking for, and then give feedback. That was good, that wasn't good. So that needs a little bit more or a little bit less. So engagement of parents is huge. And if you've had, like I think it's somewhere, I think we're roughly around 9 past students who've actually made it through that kind of first 5 years as a entrepreneurial coach, and they're still around. And they have lots and lots of kids, because it's the easiest path to being a professional paid coach. And a couple of them are taking this up because one, it engages the parents, and it also engages them in the proper direction. So as we'll talk later, it's a major problem that parents want to be helpful or supportive, or some cases they just like yelling. It gives them the right direction to go in. So you educate the athlete. I don't know, many athletes that I've had at the university, they learned how to be track coaches. I've had athletes at the university track program who were teachers, wanted to become primary school teachers, and ended up getting their coaching certifications through. And I take pride in the fact that I educate my athletes to the level that they're going to be as good or better than most coaches. So it's not just about producing performance or learning a skill, or learning to do the skill, so the end result. It's about understanding the skill, be able to reproduce it, and be able to help others. So this coaching grid does that. It will set up video sessions. So from doing this grid, you should then be able to set up a really good video session and have a lot to talk about. And I think that the biggest one is, well, the last two, but the biggest one for me is not so many coaches have done this communication grid with all their techniques, because it is hard work. But guess what? That's the thing that's going to put you on top. That's what's going to distinguish you against all others. And if we do have another second wave, there's going to be a lot of coaches who, everybody's going to jump on this. Everybody has to some extent jumped on this if it's their business or how they work, but not all. And so distinguish yourself. And last, okay, so we're thinking, should I do something like this? You know, as a coach, if I put all this effort in and then we go back to normal situation, you know, what good is it? Well, it's a renewable resource. It's again something to show that you can use as extra. So I go on that again. Okay, so there's the communication grid. This is an in-step pass. We can see the first column is phase, so in-step pass. Some textbooks might only have 3 phases. Most of the coaches that I've worked with at the university have talked about maybe 4 or 5 phases. I include a phase that you won't find in most textbooks. And we have the key wording. So, you know, you're teaching your parent, and it says step foot beside the middle of the ball. So that, you know, those are the teaching components. It says difficulty. That may be important for beginning coaches, in that, you know, it's usually one that you don't really have to give a lot of feedback for. So they, as you can see, it's 1, 2, 4, 4, 5. That's just one person's suggestion. For the average 10-year-old, it may be, you know, 4, 4, 4, 5 for a 6-year-old. Who knows? And so the more complex it is or difficult it is, the more likely you have to give feedback. And then we have a mnemonic, and these mnemonics are memory pegs, which will help somebody to learn. I would say that most, you know, for most athletes, memory pegs, it's dependent on the sport. At some age levels, they don't want to know anything about memory pegs because they're goofy. At others, they're perfectly fine. Most learners, because they have a learner's mind, are able to accept mnemonics quite easily. So we'll talk a little bit more about mnemonics just a little bit further on. So here we go. This is, I'm a martial artist. I've done karate. I also do a lot of different weapons martial arts. And this one's called Iaido. And I saw this video, was recommended to me like ages ago. And as you can see, black and white. I don't think it's quite in the 50s where the black and white was done, but just coming out of the 50s maybe. Nevertheless, it was done in black and white. And this is a form, a kata, a prearranged set of exercises that simulate a situation, a circumstance which may have happened back in the day. And it's done in English. And what we want to look for here is the angles that they do. And they have the X, which is the problem, and the O, which is the solution. So we'll go to watching this.
Your opponent is sitting facing you. When you sense that he's about to attack, draw your sword and cleave his temple. Follow immediately with a downstroke. While rising, bring the sword up and then swing it down in the kesa style to form degree. Align your rear foot with the front and then draw the right foot back. Extend your right elbow and replace the blade in the saya. At the same time, lower your rear knee to the floor. Right.
So there we have the phases, and they talk about the key teaching points. And it's very clear. They give anatomical points to pay attention to, and they talk about areas of the sword and where it should be.
And simultaneously align the rear foot with the front and assume tight doors. And now the main points of.
So now they move to the Sagittal Plane, the side, and they pick the side that the sword's on, because in Japanese Iaido, the art of drawing a sword, it's always on the left side using the right arm, even if you're left-handed. It's just the way they do things. But they pick the proper side to look at. If it wasn't one-sided, then it's possible they would have shown the other side as well.
When striking your opponent's temple, make sure that the saya is pushed way back. Bring the sword up close to your left ear and over your head, as if to thrust to the rear. The sword should be parallel to the floor. On completion of the downstroke, the kisaki is slightly lowered. At the end of the chiburi action, the kisaki is pointing downwards at an angle of about 45 degrees. From neckline. When striking at the adversary's temple, the kisaki is too low.
So now they went over the sagittal plane and the proper technique for that. And now they're going over common mistakes and common corrections.
The kisaki should only be slightly lower than your right shoulder. When raising the sword overhead, the fist and kisaki are too low. The sword should be parallel to the floor. If the sword is held this way, the kisaki becomes too low. Slightly tighten the hold of the little finger of your left hand. When raising the sword overhead, turn the wrist slightly inwards, raising the blade close to the left ear as if to thrust to the rear. On completion of the downstroke, your left fist should be level with your navel. The kisaki is slightly lowered. On completion of chiburi, the kisaki is too high. The right fist should be level with the left, with the kisaki pointing downwards at an angle of about 45 degrees.
Okay, so from this we have all the communication grid information. The only stuff that would be missing would be a mnemonic. So we have the phases, we have the main teaching points, we have frontal and sagittal planes, we have common mistakes and corrections. So that's kind of like similar, I guess, to complexity. So now we have mnemonics. So mnemonics are memory pegs. Never eat soggy wieners. That's a typical one for the direction of the compass. And there's two types of mnemonics. There's innate and learned. So the pictures are innate. Those are things that we do all the time. They're usually part of culture. And they're usually, the more emotion they have to them, the better they are. Although, sitting on a toilet, not as emotional as squashing a bug for some people. And we have handshakes. There's many of these. We do them so often that we don't really give much thought to them. They're just instinctual. Over to the right, though, we have a movie. I started karate just, I think, half a year before Karate Kid in 1984. So I started in 83. And then everybody joined karate. And in there was mnemonics. And the funny thing was, my instructor, my sensei, had used mnemonics for a different technique. Not a lot of them, but a few different ones in terms of kind of the learnt ones. So we have a block that goes across the body, and we open the thumb up and say you're pushing the thumb into like a knife into the wall. And we had styrofoam that he brought, and you'd take like a butter knife and squish it into the wall. And it was kind of an interesting feeling because this motion where we rotate is very, very strange. So we did lots of that sort of stuff. But we'll watch the videos because they're the perfect example of this. And in, maybe 10 years ago, if I said Karate Kid, probably 70% of the students would know it. But now, if you know Karate Kid, it's probably the Jaden Smith one, and Jackie Chan. I love them both, but not even close to the original. So we'll watch this for a second. The first part is Miyagi, the karate instructor, teaching Daniel, the student, to wash the car, to wax the car on and wax the car off. And then the second video is what it means. So he's getting a little bit, Daniel's getting a little bit upset because he's done a ton of yard work. He's sanded the floor and painted the fence and all sorts of stuff. He's done this for weeks, which, yeah, he's done it for weeks or more, let's hope. And he's had enough, and he's having a bit of a spat. And his shoulders hurt, so Miyagi fixes it, but I'm going to go to the park. Fixes the shoulder. Wouldn't be a risk issue in today's society at all.
How did you do it? Wax on, wax off.
And there we go. So again, maybe the idea of being able to kind of have a psychological, social connection to students online could be possibly created by teaching mnemonics. They're so unusual, that we don't see them in everyday coaching, and yet I think that master coaches are able to use these continually, and it takes creativity and it takes some time. In the university course, we get into the aspects of emotion. That's why bug stamping is kind of it's sad for the bug, but it's quite an emotional response. The more emotion involved, the better it is. And so, as a coach and thinking about technique, and again, it's one of those ones you probably need somebody else to work with. And so that, bringing parents, that's a big thing, and something that they can grow with their child, and something that they'll pay you for. So we have our feedback, and all those kind of things need to be, well, they don't need to, but they are definitely part of a quality online educational system. So future use, getting to the end. So we have these skills that we've learned. We're going to have to learn a little bit of video editing. At university, we're going to be teaching it. We need to learn a fair bit about coaching in general, but most coaching courses have some aspects of this. and we've made this resource possible. So what do we do with it? You have homework. I've told, again, every coach that I've ever taught, some of the best things about where I grew up was that we didn't call it homework, we just called it extra training. But like, you know, our say, you know, a volleyball team, and they had 4 or 5 practices a week, but not very much time, 45 minutes. And so what they would do is they'd say, okay, in the morning, you know, they'd have some basic reward, and they'd get us to do extra training or homework. And they had like a small VCR, well, small, a VCR, and you'd stick it in there, and it'd show you the coaching points that you need to pay attention, like for hand setting, triangle, relaxed ball shape, and whatever. And you go hit the ball against the wall for like 10 minutes and take care of that. It was homework, so that by the time you got to the 45 minutes of actual coached content, it was tactics and positional and situational things. It wasn't spending time doing technique. So having this resource as a future homework, you know, absolutely best is going to be face to face. But then afterwards, you can lock it in and say, well, you know, this is what I just taught you. It's online. Educating parents, I've said that before. You look at the one picture there, and you know, we have hockey parents. You guys have football parents, and they just screaming 24/7. And it's not good that they're screaming at their young person. Let's see if we can redirect them and get them to be active coaches in the technique that they're learning. And so, you know, that resource, that coaching grid, it could go some way to doing it. I've said educating athletes. Again, this is singing from the same hymn sheet. It's educating athletes is something that I do. It takes a lot of time to start, but afterwards, the benefit is that, you know, you have an athlete who is able to be aware of the technical problems that they have, later the tactical problems, and they're analyzing them themselves. They're teaching or coaching their fellow athletes. It's an organic thing, and it's super good. But having that resource is going to help you to continually send that same message across. And finally, becoming more than your competitors. If you're to go out and coach on your own, or even go coach in an organization, you get that dream opportunity to coach at, you know, some football academy somewhere. Bringing in these type of ideas, even if things go back to the way they were, you're going to be worth something. You're going to be head and shoulders above the competition, because there is a huge amount of competition to be a professional coach. And I mean, by professional, I mean getting paid a full-time salary, whether that's after school clubs or working at a premiership football club. There's just so much competition. So these things that you do here, I mean, if not now, then when? They're the ones that put you ahead of everybody, you know, because most people don't go that far. And so it's things, these are the type of things that I think about for me as a coach in some of the sports that I coach, but also for me as a lecturer. Going forward, I think that online education will be part of what we do. I like to be with the students and around the students and watching them coach and do physical activity. It's one of my joys, but teaching online now is something that I think that some amount of time will be spent for the rest of my time as a lecturer. And I think that if you miss this opportunity to learn these skills, to employ them, you're going to be left behind for sure. So I plowed through it, and actually I figured I'd be done in half an hour, but in prime Sean's way, I finished longer than I thought I would. So let's see if we got some questions. I think that's it. Yeah. So if we got any questions, if Paul is able to.
Thank you very much, Sean. There are no questions posted.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone wants to post a question now. The other alternative is that I can try allowing people to talk. That's an option. So if people did want to ask a question, I'm allowing people to talk. I think it works for some people. It depends on which version of Zoom you've got, I think. Okay. So I think a lot of people are unmuted if anybody does have any questions, or if you prefer to post in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen, then obviously you're welcome to do that. I think everybody's a bit shy. I'm sorry, there was a bit of interference between us. Oh, we've got a question, I think. This is from Corey. What advice would you give in terms of doing online sessions with adult teams, and how would you keep them engaged?
So it depends on the level of the adult team, but I mean, we can suppose that adults, we'll say 18 years and above, they're there because they want to be there. However, if they're a performance team, then you definitely need to be on point with regards to performance for a large amount of the time. I think I would, if I had like a performance team, I would be looking at exemplars techniques. So say it's football, I'd be looking at the best players around. I'd have video of the best players around who make certain passes, and we start to pick apart that and have a discussion. Of course, the hard part with that is then turning that into something that the professional team can use, and also keeping them on track, because no matter who you pick, it will not be the favorite of everybody, and you'll end up with a lot of talking towards who's better. And even if it was a top level performance team, I think I would definitely include some elements of social. Banter is a word that's used a lot in UK. You have to be careful because normally banter is something that most athletes are able to take pretty well. Whether we should have it or not, that's another question. But we have to be careful, because today's world, lots of people are highly stressed, not doing what they love, and so you just got to watch that. But there is some importance to it, because it's also a release. So I would, what I'm saying is, if I had an online team or a team and I was trying to deal with them online, I would definitely focus on top level technique, ask questions, get them working, thinking more, because theoretically their technique should be good. If I had access to statistics and technical abilities, then I would start to tailor those sessions a little bit more specifically to maybe bringing groups of players in. So my professional football team, I would have the defenders together and talk about things that they could start to do. I'm getting off track a little bit, but I mean, I remember the French national team, the first time they won the World Cup, they did a ton of stuff where they watched video from many different angles, from over top and down below and right and left side and front and back, and use forms of visualization to develop their perception, their visual awareness, their anticipation of other teams. And so that was time well spent. And they spent many sessions, hours sessions that lasted about an hour, and by their account, somewhere between 30 and 60 sessions, looking at specific teams, and they had video from above and below. So it's a tough one, but it's really what you have for material, what the level of the team you're coaching. It's probably a good blend between technique, tactics, so the business end of sport, in terms of performance, and having some fun, because there needs to be some way to inject fun. I hope I answered that.
Yeah, that was brilliant, thank you. And then we've got a question from Moira. What tips would you have for welcoming your team back to their first training session?
Okay, so first training session as a virtual coach, or first training session where you're on the pitch, like, and like if we're talking live or we're talking virtual, there's definitely two different types of aspects. So if you could clarify.
Okay. So Moira, is that live or is it virtual? On the pitch, Moira is saying.
Okay. So we have, the first thing I would do absolutely is, what I say to every coach who's ever come through my program: don't kill the athletes. And I mean, that means risk. So, your athletes left, they haven't done football or whatever they've done for 3 months almost. It's 80 days, was it? So those habits don't change. So, handshakes and bro sister hugs and all those things, they're still in there, and they're going to lock right into that. So unfortunately, I would spend a lot of time to protect yourself and them with whatever rules come about. So if there's social distancing, I'd probably have a fun session where I get people to wear hula hoops or something, and big fuzzy gloves and stuff, because they're gonna need symbols to remember to not do all the things that were normal to them before. It's just wow. And so I think even your first session back is going to be in smaller groups. So like I said, you're probably going to have to meet with the defenders, the midfielders, the strikers, whatever, because you're only going to allow a certain amount of people on the pitch. So wow, yeah, it's gonna, the first thing I'm going to do is try to figure out ways to overcome 5-10 years of training and those habits that are counter to what the new rules are. And that's for everybody. I'm a big hugger, and I'm going to have a hard time not hugging people when I get back.
Okay, thank you, Sean. We've got another question from Charlotte. She coaches under 13s with learning disabilities, and at the moment she says they just do football quizzes. What else would you suggest we could do with them?
Okay, so during the current climate, what else? I'm going to make some broad sweeping kind of generalizations. Is with learning difficulties, there's a whole range of them, but one of the best things about sport for people with learning difficulties is that they can just get out and do it. They get to do it. They get to do the sport and the learning. Certainly, there's some problems with learning the skills, but it's just you'll always have an output to doing an activity. You kick a ball, it's going to go. Most of the time. So some of the things you might want to do is if you have some ability to collect some sort of technical video of athletes doing their own thing, doing some sort of trick football or whatever sport they're doing. Which one was that? You have the sport it was again? Learning difficulties, in which sport was it?
It was football, I think.
Football, okay, yeah. So get the parents to, or brothers or sisters, to do a video of them doing some sort of tricks, and when you bring that up, it gives some pride to the athlete who's doing it. You can decide if you want to give a little bit of advice on things they could do differently, or you could make it into kind of a game show type thing where no negative rating, but let's give it a positive rating. So you start with like 3 stars and all the way to 5 stars, and everybody puts up a star or whatever. Or I've seen some so those famous videos where people are punching somebody and somebody's falling back. I've seen something different where somebody does a sports skill and then the other person does a sports skill and a little bit more, and it just keeps going. And it's kind of like a game of tag. So those are some of the things that I've seen that are really successful, but it takes some organization from you to get the parent or brother to take the video, then upload it to someplace safe, obviously, that you can take it and then show it also on a safe situation. Because my goodness gracious, all the technology and risk that we need to be aware of with regards to that, safeguarding and all those sort of things. So, but yeah, I would do something like that. I would start to get their faces there, even pictures, you know, some interesting picture is probably even easier than a video of them doing something, and then, you know, showing it to the group and talking about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And there was a second part to that question. Charlotte obviously also coaches a ladies adult team with disabilities who are struggling with their mental health due to not having their training weekly. So she's also been doing challenges and quizzes, but that doesn't seem to be helping.
I think the same thing would hold true.
Yeah.
To be able to, you know, get the adults to do a skill at home, take a picture or a video and have everybody be positive towards it. You know, just having people say nice things in what is a pretty negative situation, and just a lot of negativity in general going around. Not that it's not needed, but there's a whole, it seems like the world's running into some serious trouble right now, and so that type of residual comes out on us, and people feel it, especially when media is 24/7 negative. So finding some sort of way to have a group of people get them to do something physical, because even that's tough for people. But, you know, if it's netball, go out in the back garden and you know, spin a ball on your finger, or, you know, hit a target 20 times and get some videos and pictures, and then have the group say something nice about it. That's probably it's going to be a good thing. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And then I think a final question from Alistair. Oh, it seems to have, hold on a moment, it disappeared there. What challenges did you encounter when you first started doing online coaching, and how did you overcome these and get the participants to buy into it?
Well, it was like I said, Alistair, most of the things here I know when I teach, but I didn't do. So it took me, I would say, teaching sports skills took me at least 5-10 sessions to one, feel comfortable, to remember to go frontal and then side while I'm demonstrating, to create those communication grids were really important. To start being a little bit more funny. I think being a robot is, some people accept in a certain environment, but if you're not big with your movements and change your tone of voice and all those things that I talked to you about, in terms of, you almost got to be like an actor or actress to really come through on the screen, is quite tough. So my biggest problems were trying to integrate some of this stuff that I know step by step each time I did it. So it's a lot of work. I looked at the videos and then would change stuff, and it's a lot of work. But if you want to be good, you have to do the videos, do the live stuff, and ask for feedback, and that's how you get better. Take one learning concept and try to put it in there, and then next time try to put another one in there. Ask the athletes what works and what doesn't.
Okay.
Alistair, you'll have to come back and do a master's degree, and we'll study that one.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Sean. That's all the questions and comments answered in great detail. So thank you for that, and thank you for a brilliant presentation. It was really enjoyable.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.